You W201 and W124 owners are going to really enjoy this video. You may not be aware of this product, but it's pretty cool. And the owner of the company Too Fast Motorsports, Rick Johnson, recently sent me one of his new mirrors for my 190E that sits here behind me. And you might be thinking, well, what's so special about a rear view mirror? Well, if any of you have driven the newer Mercedes-Benzes, you know how nice it is to have the auto dimming feature. Even the compass, and some of you know what it's like to have the home link device so you can actually open open the garage door with your rear view mirror. And so what Rick did, he actually, about the 1990s, he's always liked cars, he's always liked Mercedes-Benz, but he started messing around with making an auto-dimming mirror for his 124 chassis. And he, like so many things, and I just love this because I know the process, I know what I call it, the kind of the development phase of new products and the evolution of how they're engineered. And Rick went through this whole process, started out trying to figure out how it worked. And then he figured out a way to make get the power to the mirror to make it auto dimming. And then he stole parts from other mirrors. And then he had other people write him and say, well, can you do this to my mirror? And of course, people sent him their mirrors, and he would modify their mirrors. And finally by, the mid-2000s, he decided, wow, I'm going to have to turn this into a business. And you know something? That's how Mercedessource started. I mean, that's how a lot of these types of business start. They start from, it starts as a hobby, and then it begins, okay, well, how can we make something better? How can we make our hobby more fun? And then we end up creating some tools and some devices and some gadgets, and pretty soon, so other people want those, and then it becomes a business. And that's what's happened with Too Fast Motorsports and Rick Johnson. He now has a business that supplies these beautiful rear view mirrors for the W201 and the W124 chassis. He has a couple different models. Let me show you these up close. Let me begin by showing you the stock W201 mirror. You can see here's the spring attach point here in the arm, and you note the mirror is fairly thin. This is typical of most of the mirrors, from the 70s up to the mid-90s. Now, this is a great mirror, it works fine, but it doesn't auto dim, and that's the one feature I really love. And here's Rick Johnson's mirror. Look at this, look at the quality of this. You can tell it's quite a bit thicker. That's the only difference, but in the car, you won't really notice that. It's the same profile, almost, it's a little bit shorter, but the bracket is exactly the same. Here you can see the home link programming buttons for the garage door, and then of course here you have, that's where the compass is going to show right there, and then there's the sensor for the auto dimming feature. One thing you notice right away, look at that, you've got electrical power to this mirror. So if you have a W201 chassis, you really need a power sunroof that tilts, that has the power overhead, not the power on the dash. So that's really important. If you're considering this mirror and you don't have power up in the headliner, you're going to have to fish it up there, and that makes it considerably more difficult. So let's go ahead and get inside the car, and I'm going to show you how to remove the old mirror and locate the wiring that we're going to need to hook up Rick's mirror. When removing these mirrors, you have to be a little careful. You don't want to grab a hold of the mirror itself when you pull it off or put it on. You want to grab a hold of the bracket. Securely grab a hold of the bracket. Now, I just noticed this, but look at this mirror. See that? It's loose, so it needs replacing anyway, but I have a good hunch. This is what happens right here. If you try to go like this to pull the mirror off, you're either going to cause this type of damage where it's going to be loose, or you're going to actually pop it out of the ball socket and you cannot get it back in. So removing the mirror, tip it back like this, get a hold of it real good, and then just give it a yank down just like that. A good solid yank will get that mirror off without damage. The next step is to remove this combination dome light and power sunroof switch assembly. There's a couple problems with this. If you understand how it's fastened on, you might eliminate some trouble when you try to get yours out, because a lot of times these things get buggered up. On this side, right here on the left side, there's two little plastic hooks that hook over the edge of this panel, this little headliner panel. On this side, right here and right here, are two spring clips. Now the problem is sometimes those spring clips get bent out and they get locked in behind. So the normal sequence is to just get on this side here and pop this down. And if it doesn't want to pop down, you have to be careful about forcing it. So it feels like this one has a little bit of a problem. Normally you get on it like this and just pry it down, it should just come down. I'm going to try to get in behind these spring clips, see? All right, there, I got a hold of that spring clip, and then it freed up and popped down, and it's caught on this side. Okay, I've freed that side up, and then I can pull it back. Here you can see those two clips, and here you can see the two spring clips. See how those are popped back, and you can see how easy it is. There's a little bit of damage here where it's gotten caught on the back side. So you have to use a little care when removing this. And now I can unplug it. I've got 3 plugs to unplug. And I've got the hose right there. It's already loose. I'm going to have to repair that so I have a tight fit. But that's the hose for the climate control sensor. So once that's removed, we just take the whole dome light and sunroof switch assembly down and put it on the workbench. All right, look at all this wiring here. Where do we go to find the power? Let's take a close look at that. I'll show you how to find a keyed power source for the new mirror. In order to find where you have a keyed power source, and by keyed I mean you have 12 volts with the key on and no volts with the key off, you're going to need a voltometer like this, similar to this, or you're going to need a 12 volt test light. Now, Rick's instructions say to find the 6-pin connector. Well, there's 6 holes and there's 6 holes. But if you look closely, there's really only 5 contacts in this one on the right side. This is for the dome light. You do not want the one for the dome light. That has 12 volt power all the time, and that'll drain your battery down if you try to hook up the mirror to that one. You want the plug, the 6-pin plug, and you can clearly see there are 6 contacts inside those holes, that goes to the sunroof switch. So what I'm going to do is try to figure out which 2 of these contacts will give me 12 volt power. And if I look in here, usually on Mercedes-Benz, the brown one is the ground. I see a brown one right here that goes into this hole. So I'm going to take my negative test lead and put in that one. And then I will watch my meter while I take the positive lead and just start making contact with these other holes in the plug. Okay, no voltage there, no voltage there, nothing there. It's got to be this one. It's got to be this one right here. All right, look at that. I'll show you. See, we got just under 12 volts right there. Now let's turn the key off. We have to test it to make sure it's keyed. So I will turn the key off. Yeah, look at that. It went right to 0. So that's confirmed. These are the 2 wires we're going to need right here. So what I have to do next is I have to peel back this tape insulation. I'll come back about 3 inches because I want to splice right in this area so it's up away from the plug. I'll peel this tape back, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how we connect the contacts to plug in the new wiring for the mirror. I've peeled back approximately 4 inches of this insulation tape on the wiring harness. I'm ready to install those special connectors that are supplied in the kit. You do want to make sure you have the right wires. I can see down here, and these are the 2 holes I'm after, and it's the black and the brown wire. if you're not sure, if you don't think you can see down in there well enough to determine which wire it is, you can snap the cover off of this plug. But I'm going to warn you, be real careful when you take it off. Look what I'm doing. I make sure none of the wires pop out. See that? And now you can see the color coding on every wire if you have any concern that you're not choosing the right color. I'm confirming, yep, black and brown are the ones I want. So I will snap the cover back on like that and pull. Let's do the black one first. I'll pull the black out like that. And then I'll get the special terminal that is supplied. Look at that, that's pretty slick. You just take and put the wire right there like that. And this is going to squeeze over and actually cut into the wiring so it will make contact. Now, some of this wiring is pretty old and it's hard. The installation's hard. So it's going to require a pair of pliers to get that on far enough. Let me grab a pair of pliers to squeeze that connector together, and then we'll come back and finish this up. Just standard pliers work great for this. Notice how I've grabbed a hold of that terminal housing, and I'm just going to squeeze it down until it snaps and it locks in place right there. Make sure it's locked in place. I will get the second one. Now the second one should be positioned probably right about here, just so it's not in direct line with that one, in case you have a problem with interference. Now notice how I've twisted these so they're away from the plug. All right, that one's lined up, and I'll get the pliers, get on that and squeeze this one down. All right, it's snapped into place. Okay, I've got my two terminal connectors on, one on the brown wire, one on the black wire. Now let's do another test. And I can plug in the wiring harness that's supplied in the kit. This is just for the test, because I want to make sure I got good contact on those terminals when they cut into the wire insulation. Okay, now I can use my meter. We're going to check and see that we still have power. I will turn the key on. Okay, sometimes you need more than one hand here. All right, I'm showing 12 volts. I'm going to turn the key off. No volts. Okay, that confirms that the wiring phase of this installation is done. And now the next step is to route this new wiring up through this hole so I can make sure I connect it properly to the mirror when I install it. This is the wiring harness that comes with your new mirror. Here are the two plugs that plug into those connectors that we just finished hooking up. It also has a nice little fuse, 5-amp fuse in line here with hot lead. And then the plug-in is one of these Molex connectors like you see here. This is great, but in my case, I was able to find a hole. If you see here, you can see a couple holes in that headliner panel, and I'm able to route the wire through those holes and down through the hole where the mirror attaches. Now on some models, you have to shove this underneath the headliner panel because there's no access to that hole. But the only way I could get this in the 201 through those holes was to remove the Molex connector. So I'm just going to show you a little tip. This is plugged in and it's locked. And to unlock the two pins, you have to have a little tubing that you can push down and collapse those pins. So I just used a acid brush and rolled it down tight. You can see about how big it is in diameter. and then I pushed it over the end of the Molex pin like that and collapsed it, and then I was able to pull it out like this. Now once you pull it out, you're going to have to spread these little tabs so it will lock back in. Now I'm going to route this through the hole in that headliner sub panel, and I'll show you in the car how this comes out the bottom, and then we'll reconnect the Molex connector here, and then we'll install the mirror. Here you can see I've routed the new wiring through the cutout hole in that mirror attach plate, and I'm going to reinstall the Molex connector. You need to make sure you can check the wire colors on the mirror. In this case, the red goes in to the pointed end of the connector, and I'll push these right in, and you push them in until you feel them, lock in place. And we'll get the black one in. And you can check and then pull back on it like this to make sure that it's locked in place. Now I'm ready to install the mirror. We have installed Rick's special tool that he supplies in the kit to make the mirror mounting much easier. Make sure this connector is plugged in and locked. There's a little locking tab right here. Okay, that's secure. Now I can feed this connector back up in the hole. I'm going to put one side of the mirror up. I'm going to push the other side up here. Once it's in place, then I'm going to remove the release tool, and look at that. The mirror is in place and locked in. Isn't that nice? Now this is going to conclude. By the way, I'm just going to quickly reconnect this dome light and power sunroof switch, and then we'll go out and do some road tests. This concludes part 1 in this series. In part 2, we'll go over some of the adjustments on the mirror and talk about the end results.